Good evening. Problems. They're Subarus. We love them, we hate them, but they get in our souls. So, yeah, tonight is about problems, check engine light, running issues, any other issues that you got with your Subaru. Fire your question in, put a Q at the beginning of it so that I can easily identify it, and I will try my best to answer them. If you haven't been here before for one of these live streams, where have you been? This is number 34, I think, off the top of my head. I tune Subarus all day, every day. I've been tuning Subarus for 18 years. Owned Subarus for 23 years. So I've come across most things. So if you've got any issues, running issues, check engine codes, fire them in, give me as much information as you possibly can, and I will try my best to answer it, or to at least point you in the right direction, give you a little steer. Try tonight to keep the questions related to problems rather than tuning or compatibility of parts, those kind of things. If you got those questions, put them in. If I've got time at the end, I will try and answer them. I'm going to try and keep this session to an hour, so it might be that we finish the problems early, in which case, great, let's try some other stuff. So, there we go. Right. I can see we've got a few people in here already. Hi guys, got some of the regulars, some of the Academy members, which is great. Right. Okay, so before I start answering some of your issues, these are like common things that come up as far as check engine codes, those sort of things. One of the common ones is, P301, P302, 303 and 4. Misfire codes generally. They can be the obvious things like spark plugs or coils, but most often they're like a code that pops up because something else is going on. Most often on things like Bug-Eye WRX, where it'll be a neutral position switch that will be playing up, a 28 pound switch that goes on the side of the gearbox on those, because that's sending a signal to the ECU multiple times a second. It gets confused and it just pops up one of these 301 or 302 codes. Could be related to that. On a Bug-Eye STI, it would have the impact of dropping the cams out of it as well, which is another side effect of that. But it could be wiring corrosion, it could be bad earths, it could be cam sensors, it could be many different things. Changing coils and spark plugs is quite an expensive thing, so probably investigate some of the easier items to fix first. Right, excuse me being out of breath. I've run back in because I just realised what the time was. Right, okay, so we've got a few questions. Right. Yeah, it must be 19. I think it's 19 in January. Or, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's a long time. It's a long time. But I still love it. I absolutely love it. Right. Okay. Some questions. Right. Question from Joe. Hey, Duncan. Would lowering cranking fuel tables help you on start? It could do, but it might be the opposite. So what I'll do is I'll fire over a couple of files a bit later on that's going to do one extreme to another, so increasing those values or reducing them to see whether it can start easier without full throttle. It might be a drive-by-wire thing as well, or a fuel pressure thing, an actual physical issue on the car. But I'll fire over an extreme either way, and we can test those out. Right, Craig, I'll come back to that later on if we've got time. Right. Yeah, good one. If one core fails, is it a good idea to change all? It's a difficult one. I would probably towards yes, if only because the new age cores on the earlier cars now, like the 2001 to 2005 cars, are starting to fail just from an age point of view now. Previous to the last couple of years, I would have said they were like super reliable, but now they're starting to fail more regularly. I had a car on the dyno which I was filming, which will be out this weekend, but the coils on that were just starting to misfire at reasonable power. Wasn't an issue at normal sort of running power, but when the boost went up, when the power went up, just started misfiring. Changed the coils, all four, and problem solved. It's worth changing them. At least then you know, okay, the coils were done on XYZ date or XYZ mileage. Right. Right. Hi, Craig. Hi, Mel. Hi, Doug. Hi, Joe. Grant. Mel's had a bit of a week, I'm afraid. Yeah. A head stud coming loose and a nut, head bolt or head nut sort of going under a cam, and yeah, all kinds of horrible things going on there. Right. Okay, well let's come on to Craig, seeing as I haven't got many questions yet going on. What closer ratio boxes are compatible with your UK 2006 WRX? Yeah, I think Doug said the Legacy one would, but I'm not sure about that. The Legacy box, if it's from the later Legacies, doesn't have a speed sensor, so it's going to cause other issues on that. What closer ratio boxes? I don't know the ratios off the top of my head, so I wouldn't know, but yeah, some of the like GC8 or like an RA box is like super close ratio, but I'm not sure about the drop gear and whether you need to change the rear diff as well, or even whether they're compatible, so I'm afraid I'm not much help on that. Evening, Matt. Thanks for the answer on the last Q&A. Lost connection. I had to watch it back on the following day, but perfect. Awesome. I can't remember what the question was, but I'm glad I helped. Yeah, so, some of the common issues, like things like stalling coming up to junctions, tends to be things like dump valves that are sticking open. Aftermarket dump valves are a particular bane of my life. Because of where they're located, because there's oily vapour coming in and out of there, and because the bonnet scoop is there and blowing dusty air at it, it tends to form a kind of grinding paste, and the dump valves stick open or don't shut quick enough, and aftermarket ones, the springs are not particularly good. So the side effect of that is the valve doesn't shut quick enough, so it has a job in catching the idle before it comes back down. So if you're getting that kind of an issue, then yeah, take the dump valve off, either throw it away, put the standard one back on, or clean it out with WD-40 or whatever the equivalent is in your country, and it should be good to go. Right, okay, so we're venturing into other things apart from problems. No one's got any problems on their Subarus, that's cool. Hi Duncan, do ARP head studs need retorquing after some miles of driving, or one-time torquing is enough at the time of install? ARP instructions do not mention anything about retorquing. I've never had to retorque ARP head bolts. If you're doing it properly, you putting them down to the bottom of the bores, no torque when you're installing them, and then going up doing the 30, 60, 90. Never had an issue with that. So have you been told that you need to retorque them? Seems like an awful lot of work when it's not actually in the manufacturer's instructions. Right, Craig. Hi, Craig. If you have a piston failure on a 2006 Hawkeye, is it catastrophic, or may I be lucky and get away with just putting new forged rods and pistons? It depends what's failed on the piston. If it's just the ringland that's gone, if you catch it early enough, it will probably just need a quick polish in the bores and it'll be fine. If it's bad, i.e. a hole in the piston, then the bore is going to be damaged, and yeah, you're going to have a lot of work to do, or buy a new block. If you're lucky, then it's just new pistons and rods. Split it open, do the whole job. If you're doing that, I'll put new big end bearings in, obviously, and mains. Yeah, it depends how lucky you are. If it is ringland failure, as to how quickly you catch it. Okay, Sam says, alright, recently purchased a 2005 WRX Blob-Eye wagon, Blog-Eye. It's been well serviced, currently on 90,000 miles, fairly OEM spec, 90k is low mileage. I've mapped them with 300,000 miles on, and they've worked just the same as new. If they're maintained well, they don't lose power over the years. They just, if it's 220 from the factory, it'll be 220 now, 20 years later. 90,000 miles is low mileage in my opinion. They're all getting time and years on the clock, but if they're maintained well, it's not an issue. Really isn't an issue. Good oil, good fuel, and warmed up and cooled down, and they'll be absolutely mint. Okay, any more for any more? Right. Yeah, some of the other issues that I've seen, bad misfires when you're on boost. If it's at peak torque, i.e. sort of around 4,000, 4,500, then it's generally coils or plugs. I've seen some issues with like the piggyback loom adapters for the different injectors, like the ID1000s. I always think it's better to just put the actual plug connectors on the end of the wires rather than having another two joints in there. I've seen those split open or get a bit loose in there and cause a random misfire. If you got a misfire at 4,000, 4,500, it could be fuel related. First thing to do there is to check the vacuum hose to the fuel pressure regulator, because if that comes off, it's going to be massively lean at that point and will misfire a lot. Don't try and drive through it, fix the problem, test it and keep testing it until you fix the problem. If it's exactly at 4,400, it could be a speedo related issue. There is a hidden like limits. If the speedo fails, then it won't let it rev past 4,400. So, you know, that's something to check on that as well. Yes, those injector connectors are shit. Craig, as I said about the legacy box, it doesn't have a speedo thing, so you're not going to have a dash. I think iWire in the States do a wiring conversion to allow you to use one of the ABS sensors to then feed into the dash cluster, but it's quite a bit of work involved on that. Right. If you reuse the hydraulic tensioner on the timing belt and use a wrench stick to put in the pin, can it be broken and sloppy? No one likes sloppy. Yes, it can. If you are reusing those, and I would probably say you shouldn't, unless it's only just been on there and you just maybe had an oil leak on a cam seal or something like that you're trying to fix, then you can squeeze it together if you're pushing the piston down slowly with a vice, not fighting against the pressure. Then use the original grenade pin to hold it shut. If you push too hard when you're trying to close it up, then you can break the seals in there and it will become loose and broken and sloppy. Right, is it possible to flash an STI map onto a 32-bit ECU? I was thinking ahead. I would need to check on that, Tom. I don't think you could, but I would need to check. I've never felt the need to do it. The WRX ECU, the 32-bit Hawkeye one, is absolutely fine. I'm trying to think of what bits are different. I'd need to check and come back to you. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Any experience of caseport brakes? Yes. Is there a big upgrade from STI Brembos using good discs and pads? Yes, it is a good upgrade. There was a lot of fuss at the time about them not having dust seals in there, but I ran them for many years on my old Impreza and didn't have any issues. The pads that come with the kit are made of cheese, so don't use them. They are appalling. The standard discs are fine. With some decent pads, perfect. Really good upgrade from the STIs. Right, looks like expensive upgrade in the future to 6-speed if you're lucky when you split the block and don't end up with a money pit. Yeah, yeah, or just buy a new STI short block with the pistons and rods and everything included. They're about £2,000 in the UK, and that's for the RA block. So it's, you know, arguably stronger. You know, some people say it's stronger, some people say it's exactly the same. I've seen the pistons, they are stronger. And I've heard from machine shops and they say the material is different to the 257, the normal 257 block. Boom, boom. Okay, Joe, you have a 6-speed manual, legacy 3-litre differential, blah, blah, blah. If you can find a VIN number, I've got a website that you can check and get the exact part numbers for all the bits that are on the VIN number of the car that you're looking at. So if that helps, if you know the VIN number of the car that it came off, then it might help. But buzz me a message on that. I can point you in the direction of the website that I use for that. How's the Forester coming along? Waiting for the gearbox back. Should be any day now. And then the engine's ready to go in. So I'll join the three things together. Is the fuel pump module different from WRX to STI? I don't know actually, Grant. Knowing Subaru, I would say no, it's no different whatsoever. It's doing the same job. I wouldn't have thought it's different. Right. Right, hold on. Yeah, as Colin's saying, it could work. Let me check, Tom, because the compatibility checker on the ECU Tech software is pretty good. So I'll check the two ROM IDs on there, see whether I can use one to flash the other. If not, it'd be a case of just getting a STI ECU, and then you've got all the compatibility. Right, do we need a retune if doing an EJ207 short block swap on a Legacy GT? Can it run the same map or need retune immediately due to change in compression? Right, if you're putting a 207 into that, then that would be lowering the compression on that. It will be fine using the map that's on there, unless there was something in the map that killed the old engine, in which case I'd say definitely check everything out. But if you're lowering the compression, it's not going to run optimally on the old map, but certainly to get it running, then it will be fine. But I would say definitely needs mapping going forward to make it run right. Okay. Is minus 2.11 feedback knock usually false under small to moderate engine load? That's a difficult one to generalise. It can be false, and most often is. Tends to be a vibration in the engine bay, or clutch housing, or gearbox, or intercooler mount, or heat shield. But not always. The only way to tell for sure is put some deck cans on it and see whether you can actually hear detonation. Right, hi Duncan, what would cause an engine shake with strong fuel smell at startup for about a couple of minutes then went away? If this is cold start, then it could be something in the cold start map that is slightly amiss. It could be coolant temperature sensor that's not telling the truth. What else could that be? Lambda sensor that is very slow to wake up. Can happen quite a lot on JDM models. But to cause the shaking, it would have to be some issue, probably with the MAF housing or the MAF curve. Yeah, there could be so many things there, Mark. I'm sorry. Right, 2013 STI, plan on getting a Tactrix and learning to tune slowly, however the stumble is driving me crazy in the meantime. Am I able to replace the damper with a regulator with no tune? I wouldn't be so quick to blame the fuel pressure regulator on the stumble. I don't know whether you saw the video that I did on the GR with the stumble, but just changing the MAF curve in that region solved it. So it could be something that you could quite easily tune out with a Tactrix cable. If you're on standard injectors, if you're on bigger injectors, it tends to emphasize it. So I don't know why they put that ridiculous fuel pressure reg setup on there, but it does seem to have some impact on the fueling at around that 2.5, 3,000. So yeah, I'd probably say have a go at fixing it just with a Tactrix cable and tuning it yourself. Have a look at what I did in the video, and it will point you in the right direction. Right, Sam Caddick, PAR, engineering to a 5-speed helical dog box for about rated for 850 horsepower at about £4,000. I would be amazed if a 5-speed box would take that, but if they're guaranteeing it to that, then great. Cost-wise, it's better for GC8, but do you think I should try and go for a 6-speed with PPG Sanas straight cut dog box? The Sanas kit is really good. PPG is good, but what are you using the car for, Sam? If that's for the road, then I'd advise against the dog box. But if it's for track use, then I've seen people break the 5-speed dog boxes at about 420, 430 horsepower. So I think a 6-speed is always going to be a better option. The casing's stronger. Yeah, as Neil says, the noise is fascinating to start with, but it soon becomes tiresome. Right, Duncan, from your experience, how much horsepower can a Walbro 255 run? About to fit DW 1000s and would like to get above 500, but will a 255 pump do it? In my experience, not quite. 340 should do it. 490 would definitely do it, but you might be into separate wiring for that setup. But 255 and sort of high 400s is a point where they start getting a bit beyond what they can cope with. My pleasure. Have a look at that video. Join the academy and I can talk you through what you need to do. It's easy. Right. Yeah, £4,000 for 850 horsepower gearbox. I would doubt the 850 figures. Very much doubt the 850 figures. But if it's easy for you to put it in and take it out or send it back or whatever, if it breaks, then yeah, why not give it a try? But if you're doing drag or circuit, then sequential's probably the awesome piece of kit that you want. And you know, just mapping a car yesterday with a sequential Samson S boxing video on Saturday. Hopefully, if I get the edits done, then you know, that is an awesome piece of kit. Yeah, agree with Neil on that. 6-speed is great. It does everything. It's not completely bulletproof, but the ratios are nicer. It's longer if you want to cruise. It's quieter, but it is, you know, 20 kilos heavier or 30 kilos. Right, Fez, what is your percentage for methanol in tank on flex fuel? What sort of gains do you expect? Depends on the car for the gains. Depends on the compression of the engine, the turbo, and how much within the efficiency of the turbo you are. But generally, sort of about a 10% gain in power for about a 30% methanol mix. When I'm setting up the flex fuel, as you'll see in the video that comes out on Saturday, I generally set it up with 40% methanol so that they can run anywhere between 0 and 40 and it's fine. It will take care of itself. For anyone wanting pops and bangs, can confirm minus 15 degrees of ignition retard works. Good. Did you manage to get some flames out of that, Tom? Lastly, difference-wise, what's the comparables between straight cut and helical dog cut box? I'm not sure what you're meaning there, Sam. I've not run either in my own cars. I just never liked the whine from the gearbox. The 6-speed gearbox was absolutely fine for me on my own time attack car running at 850 horsepower, so I'd never felt the need to change it. And you know, until the time that the car was taken off the track, it wasn't on the road at that point. The gearbox was still working. Question about the fuel pump. I've run my pump with relay before, 100% duty basically. Is it okay like this all the time as a daily? Yeah, I don't see an issue with that. The only way, the only reason they did that on the standard maps was just to make it slightly easier from a fueling point of view at idle, just to drop the fuel pressure down so they could make it slightly more economical. But if you're running it with a on-off, or you know, like we do on a Civex, it would be 100% duty on that. Probably the same on a Link. There's no reason why it shouldn't work for a long time like that. What injectors and turbo for a forged WRX Hawkeye? Blistering, quick point to point, not fussed about horsepower figures and high speed pulls, just be right quick. That's a piece of string question. The VF43s, 48, you know, they're fabulous turbos for the mid three sort of 350-ish horsepower on yours. Good amount of torque, mapped properly, you'll get around potentially around 400 pounds a foot of torque. For B-road driving, perfect, absolute weapon. Going up power wise from there, VF400 for 400 horsepower, or you know, GT2971, something like that, that's going to be quite quick to spool. It's going to be a quicker car than something that's all top end power. Okay. Right, any key pointers for VF30 to VF23 change in the version 7 UK STI? Pulled map from Roman, it's all standard. They are probably going to work fairly similarly. The 23, because it's roller bearing, will probably spool up a little bit quicker. If you just concentrate on the wastegate duty and bring that down a little bit just to start with, that should make it fine. Or at least a good base, safe base map to actually build it up from there. Yeah, there's no advantage really for running it at sort of lower duty. Yeah, the lateral 321T on the Classic, I think is a good turbo. 321H, I think it's a superb turbo. About 420 horsepower turbo. But roller bearing, bulletproof, spools up mad. Particularly on a 2.5 litre, it's super spooly. Right. Okay, have I missed any questions out so far? I think I have. Right, just had a funny thought, not planning anything though, but would it be possible to build a bug or blob with a diesel engine making decent power? Please leave the room. Diesel, no, don't do it. It's only not a Subaru diesel engine. The cranks have got a nasty habit of snapping. Make good torque, but yeah, I think the diesel engine Subaru is not a good engine. Alright, let me just flick through this list, see if there's anything in here that I've missed so far. Okay, 09 WRX, Dow Binks. Seeing feedback knock occasionally under load. Yeah, if it's seeing it, then there's probably something going on, but until you get some deck cams on there, you don't know whether it's debt or whether it's a vibration or a resonance or a heat shield. Heat shields, the up-pipe heat shield in particular is a nightmare for that, and the welds, they're only tack welded on top and bottom, so when they start breaking they rattle, and the ECU can hear that, and it's generally on load, and yeah, it gets a right paddy on. But make some deck cans, put them on the car, take it out, see if you can listen while you're seeing what it's doing, and seeing whether there is actually something there. Right, David says, are automatics harder to tune versus a manual? As for making power, heavily modified beautifully. No, not particularly harder to tune. The hardest thing is when you're trying to do a sweep up through the rev range, trying to get it to not change gear. On some of the gearboxes, like on the Legacy, for yours you can hold it in a gear, but on some of the early ones, they have a nasty habit of kicking down, and then you're in a different rev range. But no harder to tune. As far as results in the dyno, they produce less power on the dyno because there's more transmission loss. But essentially they're exactly the same. You know, it's an engine with a turbo and it produces power. So tuning wise, there's no different. Bum, 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 bum. Yep, agreed. It is pants. I have mapped a couple of them. They make decent power, but it's just a ticking time bomb. It's going to break. the amount of those that get thrown away, it's unreal. Right, Joe, did I have a chance to look at the delicious flex fuel setup? Yes, I have, but what I wanted to do is try and get it absolutely nailed at the moment, because we'd need to swap to something like MERP or Dime Mod to run flex fuel. We can't do that on the standard ECU, so we'd need to swap it over at that point to speed density. So yeah, bear with me on the process on that. I think we're not far away from the final tune on V-Power or 93 RON, before we go down and sort of throw other spanners into the works. Hi Mark, I hope you're well. Yes, I am. Thinking of going for a mountain intercooler. What's my opinion on the 300 quid options and what mods are good to support it as booking in another tune? The 300 quid intercoolers seem to be absolutely fine, or they're fine to a point. Certainly mid 400s seems to be the point where the better kits like the pairings and the more expensive kits will start sort of pulling away as far as performance is concerned. But sort of sub 450 horsepower, as Ben's, when we did that one on the dyno, that was running a 300 quid front mount intercooler kit, and it worked perfectly. Right. Phil from Barnsley, right. Hi Phil. Right, what should my fuel pressure be at tick over? As I'm not sure. My pump is weak. Okay. If your fuel pressure is set at 2.8 bar for idle, that's with the vacuum hose off. When you put the vacuum hose on, the fuel pressure will drop from 2.8 bar to maybe 2.3 or 2.2, depending on what the vacuum that the engine is producing. So if you're seeing sort of 2 bar or less, then there's possibly an issue, fuel pump or fuel filter. If you're seeing higher than that, it could be like a vacuum issue with the engine. But fuel pumps tend to, like the symptoms of fuel pumps tend to be more evident the higher up the boost, the higher up the power that you get. All right, Brent. What would you recommend if I only do low kilometres on my cam belt? What components would you replace after 12 years aside from the belt? I hope you're not lasting the belt for 12 years. The rubber deteriorates, so they say 5 years for a reason. It's not this 50,000 miles or 5 years. I would certainly recommend not trying to stretch that out, because if it goes, then it's bye-bye an awful lot of things. What components would I replace after 12 years? If you're not doing many miles, then things tend to wear quite a lot if it's not used, weirdly. Like bearings suffer from sitting in the same position. If the engine's not turned over for a certain amount of time, then same sort of thing with that. So, spin it over regularly. But yeah, I really wouldn't recommend changing cam belts after 12 years. Do it 5 years. But yeah, not 12. Yeah, yeah, I know it would be different, but yeah, it's not going to last long if it's a Subaru diesel. Yeah, okay. I think you've answered your own question there, Dave. 06 Forester XT, AM fuel lines and rails, fuel dampers, blah blah blah. Walbo 255. Yeah, it's not tuned yet. That's the issue. It needs a tune. The fuel lines and the rails are going to change how much fuel's going in there. So that's what's going on. If your fuel pressure's at 2 bar, then it's too low. So put it back up to 2.8 or 3 bar. Then it might get rid of your stumble, but it still needs tuning, in my view. Yeah, as Zed says, you know, the 300 quid front mount kits are really good. The core's okay. The pipe work's pretty shit, but it's really thin metal. And you do wonder sometimes whether they're ever actually seen a Subaru when designing the pipe runs. But you know, once they're on there and fitted, and you've done the clamps up and everything, and it's mapped in, won't have an issue with it. Oh, rank it. What's the maximum torque? Stock 5 speed legacy transmission can handle. I have no idea. They could break at 300. I've run them over 400, but it's one of those things that, you know, it's an older gearbox now, and you never know. Like the point when things break isn't a dead, you know, fixed point. It could be 350. It could be 450. Flex fuel set up on a Link G Storm G4 Storm ECU. Is it possible? I'd need to check on that, Neil. I don't see any reason why not. So it's a separate wire and ECU you've got for something else, but it should be possible. Right, Brent again. Yeah, do the whole kit, the bearings, the idlers, water pump as well. If that's done 12 years, then all of those bits, because if a water pump seizes, then again that's belt snap, that's goodbye engine. The rest of the components on the front end there, you know, everything apart from the crank pulley, which, you know, will be fine, but all of the bearings, change them all. Just buy a cam belt kit and the whole lot. Right, how did the bug eye with the 3076R do this week? You'll find out on Saturday. Scoobs STI. Right, my legacy BP5 STI had a tune before I had it. Don't know what. Would it be okay to drive with a stainless system, or do I need a retune and a remap? You're changing how the air comes out of the engine. You're changing how the turbo boosts. You're changing the back pressure in the engine, which will change the ignition timing requirements for the engine. It needs tuning. If you're changing the whole system, or even centre sections or downpipes, it's going to change how that air goes out the engine. it needs adjusting at the very least, depending on how good the original map is. But you know, if you were bringing it to me, I'd start from scratch, remap from scratch, rather than trying to look through someone else's tune and see what's right and what's wrong in there. So yeah, it needs retuning. One more thing, when cold I get a single click when trying to start. A few tries later she starts fine. Yeah, start the motor, definitely start the motor, or it could be your battery's flat, but unlikely that it would then spring to life. Start a motor, replace that, and that problem will go away. Yeah, I don't see any reason why the G4 Storm isn't going to be able to run it. I'd need to check. I don't see many Storm ECUs, so I'd need to check, Neil. Right, cam pulleys. As these plastic ones are getting older, would you look at swapping them for new? Yeah, I know RCM sell alloy bottom sort of Bakelite replacement ones. The only ones that I've seen break are where people have tried to grab hold of the cam belt and the pulley with a pair of mole grips to stop the cam belt jumping, or when you're trying to hold them with the old multi-tooth tool and that slips and just takes chunks out. I haven't seen any break on their own. I've seen them being broken by other things like water pumps seizing or cam belt snapping, but they haven't, in my experience, they haven't been unreliable. But if you got the option to change them, you know, I've got a set of alloy ones for sale actually, which have come off an engine. It's not a bad upgrade, but it's a lot of money for something that isn't totally needed. Okay, what if I add a cutout in my exhaust before the mufflers? Some special tuning needed. No, there's people that do those devices electronic. I had a company trying to get me to use one of their systems, which is actually phone control or phone app control, where it'll open and close. You could also geotag it as well, so you say, okay, within this area open it, or within this area shut it. Quite cool. Yeah, quite good. If you want in a project, just don't fit a system that blanks the exhaust off and then releases it when you open it. Because blanking it is just the equivalent of sticking a potato in the exhaust. Okay, last live you said something about idle fuel trims negative, for example, carry on to open loop fueling and therefore, or can therefore cause lean conditions. Did you understand it correctly? Not quite. Idle. The way the new age fuel corrections work is there's various ranges. So you got the starting range, like the low end, which is idle. Then it goes up in little increments of MAF grams per second, and it's around that 20 to 50 mark. Whatever it learns in that area, it will think, I will apply that same to the rest of the map beyond that. So if it's learnt within that 20 to 50 grams per second area to take out 10% of fuel, it will take out 10% of fuel all the way beyond that. That can cause issues. You know, if your car's mapped for, you know, 11.5 to 1, for example, taking out 10% of fuel from that is going to take it into a significantly more dangerous position than it was mapped for. So it's important to get the MAF curve correct, but not completely obsessing about the last half a degree or 1% rather. Yeah, agree with that. The cheaper front mount kits, the silicon joiners are horrible. They're skinny, they're thin, and they're short. They try to save money, which, you know, they're trying to fit a price point. But if you can do one thing, then get some proper hose that's the right diameter and just make those joints slightly larger so that you can take them a bit beyond the actual the joint. Right, question, weird one. Does the standard ECU have a kind of built-in speed density? Weirdly, it does. It's not disclosed in the normal open source XML definitions, but it is existing there. So you could take off or unplug the MAF sensor and the car would run at its best guess of what it should be doing. It isn't going to run right, but it would run. There are some internal VE tables that control it, but they're not disclosed or not revealed in any information or any XML because they're not used unless the MAF sensor isn't working at all. Yeah, it does kind of work, but I wouldn't tune for it that way because you haven't got the ability to change the VE tables for that. And obviously the MAF curve isn't going to work for tuning. The only thing you would have then is a fuel map. Probably not the primary open loop fuel map. You would have another fuel map that might not be revealed. So, yeah, it's even more of a bodge than some of the aftermarket or some of the patches. Alright, yeah, go on then. ECU brands that I work with. My favourite 3 standalones, not open source. Cyvex, Link and Mtron. Probably in my favourite. Motec would definitely not be on the list. Haltech is actually pretty reasonable if you can get beyond some trigger errors that randomly happen. But yeah, probably Cyvex, Link and Mtron. Very impressed with the Mtron ECUs. Okay, is everyone still around or have I finished now? I think I've finished. Actually, we're bang on time. It's 9 o'clock. Yeah, video coming out Saturday morning. There will be a longer version of it for the Academy members with lots more of me giving information about how to set up rolling launch and flex fuel and some of the other sort of methodology that I've put into the maps. But it's a great car. You'll love it. So, see you next time.